hadn't seen them in a long time and said, oh, I think it would be a good idea. I should invite them. And those were a couple of the ladies that had showed up and obviously really needed to hear God speaking to them and reminding them of their faithfulness. So I think a good time, not just in learning to bake, but also being able to share the Word of God. So
I just wanted to add one more thing. I'm not sure if I'll get a chance to add it at the end, but the whole Mexican culture is it's like centered around a very social and hospitality type culture. And I just wanted to encourage anybody who is like sitting out here today, if you ever get a chance or ever want to go overseas, it's something that I would strongly, strongly encourage you to do. We ate so much food down there; it was ridiculous. It's not scary. It was actually a blessing just to see how open and how hospitable they were, and how much they would just share with you, and anything that they had, they would give you their best. And it was just an awesome experience. And I just wanted to encourage anybody who's interested in something like this. I'm pretty sure our church is probably gonna try and do another trip in a couple of years as well. So just keep that in the back of your head. I would strongly encourage you to go down. And even like Lisa said, it's not like it's a construction trip where you're doing things that are too hard. We may not even be doing Bible school and working with kids the next time we go down. Even it may just be baking classes, which a lot of them really enjoy. So even if you just have some baking experience and you want to go down and just that be your ministry, I would encourage you to go down. And the food's not spicy, by the way. You're good. So you can make it as spicy as you want with the amount of salsa that you put on. Otherwise, it's pretty plain. And they even have baby salsa ketchup down there for you too, if you want.
All right, good morning, guys. I'm just going to kind of reiterate what Chris said, that if you do have a desire to serve others, it's an amazing opportunity. It really is. But I'll just start by talking about my experience. We had 3 superstar couples on this trip. I mean, they're just amazing couples. And it was kind of neat as, then you had Pastor, myself, and DJ. So, yeah, these 3 beautiful couples, and then the 3 of us. So, and we had no idea what the sleeping arrangements were going to be or the host family. But I had the honor and privilege of staying with Pastor Bond. So it was really, really special, guys. We got up every morning in Mexico. The area we're in is very beautiful. It's like a fresh start. It's like you're in some kind of movie. It's usually very bright and sunny in the morning. It's cool. There's a breeze. The smell is just refreshing, and it's the rainy season. So, but each morning was beautiful, and then it would perhaps rain that day, maybe evening or for the afternoon. But so Pastor and I had a great time. We got up. I made coffee. They had a fridge there with some stuff. We went to market, bought eggs, bacon, and we just fellowshipped. We had our time in the morning where we read and we talked about what we read, and then they picked us up and took us to VBS, and it was just a real blessing, guys, for me personally. VBS was great. Like Chris said, it was a different trip than our last trip. You're with these precious kids who are speaking Spanish, and they're just so innocent. And one thing I noticed, and this was my favorite thing to do, was to watch the kids, to watch their little faces, looking and listening to the service. And these kids really have nothing. They come from nothing. So I would, if you were to ask me the biggest difference, well, you say kids are kids, but these kids were just like sponges, sucking it all up, absorbing all of it, so into it. And you know, every morning we got there, one of the first things the kids did, they would pledge allegiance to the Mexican flag. They have it in Spanish there, and I would try to stumble through it myself. And then they would pledge allegiance to the Christian flag. And if you went to Christian school, it's the same flag. Then they would pledge allegiance to the Bible. And they started every morning that way. It was really cool. That was really well done. And I'll tell you, Rod, this is a shout out to Rod and Myra, our host. They're so loving. They're so caring. Whatever you need, they take care of you. They really do. And they're encouraging. They're just amazing people. And they work really hard every summer to host these people, us coming down and helping. So I just wanted to put a shout out to them. But at the end of the day, you know, Mexico matters. The world matters. But what a trip like this does, whether it's Mexico or across seas, it primes the pump so that when you get home, you're encouraged, you're excited to share the love of Christ. That's the biggest thing with trips like this, is when you go, when you come back, you can't help but have a different perspective, even if it's temporary. That you want to go and you want to serve and you want to reach others for Christ. So, yes, Mexico matters, but guess what? Mount Joy matters. Mount Joy matters. And we all need to take this. God created us to serve and to glorify Him. We need to serve here at Mount Joy. Mount Joy matters. Thanks, guys.
I'll be brief. My takeaway was I really appreciated the relationships with people. I'm grateful I had Alice, who spoke all the Spanish I needed. I had El baño, por favor, which is the bathroom, please. And then, agua and a few other things. But really, she did a phenomenal job of translating, I think, for the whole group and kept us with the program. But I really appreciated the relationship aspect. I liked the focusing on the kids with the VBS, but then also the ministry with the family. So the family we were with, Esther and Ezekiel and Emiliano and Ethan. It said Ethan in Mexican Spanish, but it's actually spelled Ethan, so all their names are E. Ezekiel is a software engineer and programmer, but he also is a full-time, part-time, unpaid pastor, so he's one of the two pastors. And so as we were able to kind of spend time as a family together, it was cool to talk to him about ministry things, to talk about the church. He wanted to know a lot about what we had just done at camp the week before. We shared a lot of things with him, and so we had a really good connection with their family. Really bonded with their two boys really well, and had an opportunity to kind of meet with them where they're at in terms of hearing testimonies. We shared some testimonies about prayer and waiting on God's timing. Things, again, the idea of where they need to be at to hear from God right now. But I think one of my big takeaways was when we met as a team and we did a debrief, we talked about really like how do we see in our church missions in the future, and can we go different places and do different things, or do we want to really just be intentional and target where we go? And I wasn't on the prior trip, but when you go into the one church, you can see a mural and you see signatures of people in our church that were there and their favorite verses, and you begin to see like the impact, and then you go into the auditorium where like, hey, our people helped build that, and you begin to see the impact of that. There's a great benefit to us putting down roots and saying, okay, these church plants outside of Mexico City are really like partner churches for this area. And I didn't realize how much. I mean, you can maybe talk more if you wanted to about the connections with other missionaries in your other trip to Mexico. I didn't realize how many churches in this immediate area are partnered with churches affiliated with Rod and his network of churches. It's like a pretty strong connection of churches here to churches down there. And Rod is partnering with them, almost assuming more of a bishop role now. Now that these churches are getting started and taking off, he's acting more as like a bishop and helping to support and guide and lead these churches. But I think the big takeaway for me was the churches are doing well. They are growing. The people are really growing and established in their faith, and they want to branch out and put a church in every neighborhood. And I think that's something that I'll speak for myself, but I would hope and pray that our church can partner with them in that mission, because we're seeing a lot of fruit from their years in Mexico, but then also the faithfulness of all these pastors being raised up and these churches being built, meaning the people. The church we were at meets in a tent that we rented. But that's really, I think, important is the people.
To piggyback off of the family piece, the family we stayed with, Justin didn't tell you, but he connected with the boys really well, and the younger one was 10, and they both didn't like to drink tea or coffee for breakfast, so they became team milk, or equipo de leche. So it was a joke the whole week, and when we were leaving, Ethan had his arms wrapped around Justin and was like, I'm going to drink milk every night for you, which was very cute. So we really bonded well with their family. And along with that, we were really encouraged by them. Pastor Dick shared briefly before he left that those two pastors of that third church, Oscar and Ezekiel, they both work full-time jobs, and the church can't support them financially. They are basically teaching elders. So they trade off and do all the preaching and the Sunday school teaching and a lot of other stuff in the church. But they're still working full-time. So we were trying to help them financially, but it was just encouraging to see them working. Like every morning before VBS, Ezekiel would get up early. He was gone setting up the sound system, which took a long time. He'd maybe make it back for breakfast, and then we'd go to do VBS, and then he would work a full day of work and then come back to clean up and then stay up late talking to us about whatever, and about the Lord. So it was really encouraging to see their work ethic and their dedication to the church. It's a big sacrifice for them in a different way than sometimes we have here, I think. So that was encouraging. And then I also wanted to talk a little bit about Myra. So Pastor Dick talked about Rod, but his wife, Myra, she's Mexican. And she embodies the hospitality piece of Mexican culture, but it's not just that. She shines the light of Jesus very strongly. And just to give you a picture of that, I forget which night, but we were at their home, and there's like a little neighborhood that the houses go in a circle, and there's kind of like a playground in the center, so it makes it safe for kids to play. So kids just kind of show up to her house and come in, and she says hello, and they sit down, and she gives them food usually. And so one of these kids was named Roger, and he was coming for like the third time, I think, that week. So we kind of got to know him. And he was talking to her in Spanish, and I picked up a little bit of it, but asking her some spiritual questions. And when he left, I asked her, I said, do his parents go to church? Like, are they believers? And she said, no, like these kids just come to our house, and his parents were separated, and his mom wasn't walking with the Lord. So there's a lot of mess in his home, but he knew where to come to find some love. And she was showing that to him. And then it was really cool. Through a couple different conversations, his mom actually reached out and asked to do another baking class later, and seemed open to doing a Bible study with Myra. So it was just really cool to see her doing ministry actively. She was handling all of us, making a lot of food, organizing all the crafts for VBS. She had a lot on her plate, but at the same time, completely hospitable and kind and eager to give you an ear and talk to you as long as you needed. So she was really encouraging as well. And Justin had mentioned, I went to Mexico with Calvary Bible Church, where I grew up 5 years ago. And Brian and Lori Smith are in Puebla, Mexico. It's about 2 hours-ish past where we were this time. But it was cool when I went down. Myra asked me if I had been to Mexico before, and I explained that I had. And she said that she came to know the Lord through that missionary family's parents who were missionaries before. So it was so cool, like the connection between these two places in Mexico. That's how she came to know the Lord. So really cool connections there as well. Yeah, thank you.
So we were on our way back in Dallas. Pastor Dick said about me sharing, and I was like, yeah, sure. I have a week to come up with something. And then I did nothing. So bear with me. When we first started talking about going down, they said they were doing like construction and stuff 2 years ago. So I was super excited about going. And then they said we were doing VBS. And I was like, great. Kids are going to have no idea what I'm saying. So I was not super excited, but I do think that God gives us gifts, and he's going to find ways for you to use those. So that was really cool. I think it's pretty eye-opening for being a young person personally, just to see how not everybody is given the blessings and stuff that we have. Like we were talking about how I have a car, and they said like no kids have cars down there. So, I mean, a lot of families don't even have cars. So it's pretty cool just to see like how blessed I am, and I know I struggle with like money sometimes. I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be hard to pay for stuff, and like people down there struggle with the exact same things, but they don't have concern about it because they know God's gonna pull them through it. So that was kind of cool to like see how they go through that type of stuff. Pull out my notes. No, it was pretty cool just to see how they, just like their culture is, they're very nice people, and they're always very kind. Like driving is insane down there because you just go and hope that somebody stops. Where here that is not the case. So that was pretty cool. When it came to VBS, it was pretty cool to try to speak their language, and I did terrible at that. So I was using Google Translate, and I was trying to figure out how to say something. And the one kid, he was super cool. I went up and I tried talking to him, and he just looked at me like I was talking gibberish. And I was like, okay. So I just showed him on the Google Translate, and then he obviously understood. And he looked at me like I was just so confused, because I was. So that was pretty cool. But you know, I mean, it's a super cool time to go down, and I strongly encourage, if you have the opportunity to do it, because even if it doesn't sound like something you'd want to do, God's going to use your gifts. So, yeah.
I know this was my first missions trip, so I was really nervous about not knowing their language, but while technology can be a bad thing, it can be a lifesaver, because Google Translate, late at night, like, they do like to talk, so we would work all day and then come back tired, but we'd sit in the living room and be Googling each other. It was kind of like little kids now. They like sit beside each other and text each other. It's basically what we were doing. So, but it was neat. Like, she opened up a year and a half ago. They lost her husband. He had a stroke on the way to Bible study. So she opened up about that, and it was just neat getting deep with somebody when you don't speak the same language is kind of cool. But her son was there, he was 18, so the boys got along great. And he knew a lot of English, so Jesus loves us and gave us Pablo. So that was good. Like, she would rattle stuff off so fast. And then we'd all look at Pablo for translation. And then we would ask a question right when the poor boy would take a bite, and he's like trying to eat and talk at the same time. But that was neat. Just getting to know these people. You're walking into their house at like 10 o'clock at night as total strangers. And they had said, like, you probably won't go to sleep right away because they're going to want to talk to you. So we get in there, and she goes, you're tired, go to bed. I'm like, she doesn't want to talk to us. Okay. So we went to bed, and then the next day we got much closer. But we found out Rod told her that we were exhausted and to let us go to bed. So she sent us straight to bed. But when we first walked in, trying to make good first impressions. And they have, like, the little Office Max business of their own. Like, you walk into that and then go into the kitchen. Well, they had their, like, jugs of water across the kitchen floor to keep the dog out. So I'm stepping over, and my backpack hits the shelf, knocks all this stuff down, and I'm like, oh, dear God. Finally meet these people, and I'm just breaking everything. So I'm just standing there, and I'm, like, really tired, trying not to laugh, because when I'm tired, I giggle way too much. So DJ's like, well, Mom. I'm like, pick it up. So he's cleaning up my mess, and I'm trying to hold back my laughter. But, yeah, so that was cool. The youth group was neat Sunday night, because, like, DJ does not know Spanish, and it's really difficult to teach him Spanish. I have 5 minutes of video if anybody wants to see that. But the kids are just so welcoming. Like, Mexican kids are way different than American kids. They just automatically see you're by yourself, and they took DJ and they played basketball, and I was like, this is great. He knows how to play basketball. He doesn't have to talk to them. Just wave your hands and you want the ball. So I got some video of that too, so that was cool. But trying to think of anything else. I had other things in my mind, but oh yeah, I was really scared. I do not like spicy food at all, and I did not want to be stuck on a toilet from their food. So we went, and our host was like, oh, just try this. And I'm like, oh, I would be nice and try it. But I tried the one, I'm like, well, it wasn't too bad. We went out to a restaurant the one night, and I put this one, it was supposed to be their hot one, on my hand and licked it off. And I was like, well, that's not hot. I was like, that's sweet. So DJ's like, oh, good, but he likes spicy. So he puts it on his hand and takes it, and he turns like 3 shades of red, and he's like, that's hot. I'm like, no, it's not. So our food comes, and I'm dousing this stuff on my food. And our host, she's like, oh, I know Pepto. I know Pepto. I was like, I don't think I'm gonna need the Pepto. I'll be fine. So the next morning I wake up, and I was like, my stomach's fine. I wasn't sick at all. So she's telling the other missionary lady in Spanish, and this lady starts laughing. She's like, she just told me that you have a mouth for Mexican food because she doesn't even use that much stuff. I was like, yes. So here I can't eat spice, but Mexican apparently is my food of choice. But, oh yeah, they wanted us to try different food. So they were telling us to order this stuff, and it was intestines. So, like, just be nice and polite and just try it. And it was really good. We tried tongue tacos. They were not really good. They had a weird bitter aftertaste, so we'll go without them. But guts are good.
Yes, there's a lot of dogs in Mexico, wild and, I guess, domesticated, for lack of a better term. And our neighbor had one dog that was very, very loud. He wanted you to be aware he was there at all hours of the night. So, all right, so yeah, just a couple other observations. Oh, one interesting thing we had, was the one day in the middle of VBS, everybody's like, hey, everybody gather in the middle of the room and sit on the floor. Well, ground, really, because we were in an outdoor tent. We're like, why? Apparently, Mexico's earthquake alarm warning system had gone off and sent everybody an alert. Fortunately, it was sent off by mistake, but that is apparently part of their life. So in Mexico City and other areas with taller buildings, they were in the process of emptying all their buildings because they literally thought an earthquake was imminent, or had, I think, just occurred off the coast or something. So that was fun. That was new. I hadn't ever experienced that before. Yeah, and then like after a couple minutes when the ground didn't shake, they're like, all right, well, let's keep going. Like, whoa. But people have already kind of mentioned how friendly the people were. One thing that I did during VBS is work very closely with the lady that was doing the games for VBS. And she's this wonderful kindergarten teacher that had all these fabulous games. And they were playing this one game. I thought, I really like this game. I've never seen that before. It doesn't look very complicated. I need to take that back to our kids. And we can use it for VBS. We can use it for Joy Kids. I'll even use it with the youth kids. So I started looking on Amazon and stuff. I'm like, I can't find this game. So I asked Myra about it because I couldn't speak to Angie, the game person, directly because I know very, very little Spanish. I took Spanish in high school, but that was more than a few years ago. We don't go there. But so I am not very, I could pick up words a little bit, but thank God we had Alice along because that way we had a Spanish speaker in our group. But so I asked Myra, and I saw her go over and talk to Angie about it. And they're going back and forth, and Myra comes back and she goes, she made that game, so you can't buy it. I'm like, oh, all right, well, that was a thought. Well, then they come up to me later and go, Angie would like to donate the game to your church. So we got to bring the game back, and I actually, I mean, it's not that complicated. It's just a fact. Basically, you have the kids hold this up, and you try and get the ball through the hole, and you put a basket underneath it, and this and that. So we did this with the youth group on Thursday. We did it with the Joy Kids this morning, and we'll continue to use that in the future. So it's just that's the heart of the people. And, we think, well, we have so much more stuff than them. We should be giving them stuff, and they don't hesitate to go, here, take it back with you and use it. And so you'll see in the slideshow, there's a picture of me holding that up with Angie and her husband and daughter, and you'll see the kids playing it and stuff like that. So, and that's just one example of just how they were. The other thing that struck me is just how involved they are with church and VBS. They said just about everybody in their church helped in VBS in one way or another. Wendy, how nice would that be if every single person in church helped with VBS? The other thing was about 90% of their church attended Sunday school before the worship service. I don't know what their count was this morning, but I'm guessing we're a little below that number here today. So, what's that? Yeah. So, so I think we can certainly learn some things from their church as well. A couple other kind of cool God moment is, so somebody mentioned we were doing youth group with them on Sunday night last week. And so I was going to deliver the lesson. And all week, I had this lesson. Actually, when we originally assigned it to me, I had one lesson planned I was going to give them. And then like a week before we left for the missions trip, I changed my mind. I'm like, oh, that's not the lesson plan. I'm going to do this one. But throughout the week, I kept feeling like this lesson is missing something. And it's a message I've given at other churches in the past. It's actually not a message I've given here yet. I'm sure I will someday. But I was like, it's missing something for this group. And I don't know what, and I couldn't figure it out. And then I think it was Thursday or Friday, Justin came up to me and goes, I've been thinking about what we learned and we're teaching the kids at camp. Could I have a few minutes of youth group to talk about this? And I just looked at him and basically said, that's what's been missing. Like I knew right away, that's what was missing. I just didn't know what it was. It was Justin's kind of coming in at the back end after I taught to kind of wrap it up. And they blended so well together. It was just really cool the way that worked out. A couple other things that happened at that youth group too, just culturally. I did my lesson, and then we had the kids go around to different stations, and then Justin was going to wrap it up at the end. One of the stations was a prayer request station. And I haven't done this lesson with our youth, but I would imagine, and I'm going to give it away now because some of them are here, that when our kids do it, when they get to the prayer request station, they'll sit there and they'll silently pray to themselves and do their prayer requests and things like that. Well, that's not their culture. Their culture is very community driven. So they sat in a circle and all went around and prayed out loud as a group. Well, that took a lot longer than I had planned for that station to take. But it was really cool to see these kids in small groups traveling around. And when they got to that station, every group, without being told, got in a circle and they went around the circle and prayed together, individually, one at a time, out loud, which I don't know that our kids would do that, and we'll see. You guys don't give it away when we do that. But that was really cool, and unfortunately, Justin ended up having to rush his lesson because they took too long. But it was time well spent. So the other cool thing that happened is before we went to youth group during the week, a lot of their youth kids were involved in VBS as well, and you'll see in the slideshow several of them were part of the music and other things like that. And so I was, getting to know them and talking to some of them throughout the week. Well, Sunday after church, our host family said to us, hey, Carol, the one girl that, youth person that's part of there, asked me if it would be okay if you take her aside and talk to her about some things she's been struggling with. Here's somebody I've known for a week, at that point, hadn't really spent a lot of one-on-one time with her. But she had some stuff she needed to talk about she was going through and wanted to talk to me about it. And that, I teared up. And so I was able to do that. And so after the lesson, and as they were having their snack and stuff, her and I went out, and she's got some things that she's going through. And she speaks very good English. And she, actually, a lot of the kids in general do, which was very helpful for us, especially the older kids. So, so she was able, for the most part in English, to tell me what's going on. Every now and then we had to use Google Translate because she was struggling just to say it, and then to try and say something in a second language was becoming a little bit too challenging. But it was really cool that quickly she opened up, and we actually exchanged numbers. And Tuesday or Wednesday or Friday night, Laura and I FaceTime her again to stay in touch with her and things like that. So that was the one part of, I think, the trip above everything else that's going to stick with me moving forward. Let's see, was there anything else? DJ mentioned the traffic. I would never want to drive in Mexico. That was, they use speed bumps instead of like stop signs. So every major intersection, well, not major intersection, some of their major roads don't, but like if you're in a neighborhood, there's a speed bump. Instead of four-way stop signs, there's just a speed bump at every road. And so you just go over the speed bump, and then when it's your turn, you just go. And whose turn it is up for debate, but somehow they do it. And if they drove like Americans, every car down there would be beat up because there would be accidents all over. But I don't know how all of their cars are not all scratched and dinged up. Their cars are in good shape, and they don't use stop signs. They go over the speed bump, and when it's their turn, they keep going. And you also have motorcyclists cutting in and out that don't always, and pedestrians everywhere, and it was crazy. Yeah, 14 speed bumps between our host family and the church, and it was 2 miles, maybe, if that. That's just, yeah. At one point, the first night, Rod said as we were coming back from the airport to, I think it was his house first, he goes, how many speed bumps do you think there are between here and my house? He said, it's probably 1.5 miles or 2 miles at that point. And so the way he said it, we're all guessing like 12, whatever. There were 18. So yeah, that's just what they use for traffic control. And it I guess works in general. But yeah, the traffic in general. Mexico City is such a big city. Rod's house is 19 miles from the airport. There's basically one major highway that needs about 4 or 5 extra lanes, but they don't have that, so they just all squeeze together. It took us 2.5 or 3 hours to get from the airport to his house the first time. Well, yeah, it had rained, so the road floods. And so if there's only one highway and the road floods, you just don't go anywhere. And so we didn't. So that was it. But let's see. I think that's everything I had. So we have no, not from you. Anybody else? That's right. You turned down the $100,000 for all the Joy Kid volunteers. Yeah. All right. No, yeah. We'll show you the video. This is a little slideshow. There's some video intermixed. How many of you, real quick before we do this, have ever had a Vacation Bible School theme song stuck in your head for like a week or two after Bible school? Now imagine doing that in a language you don't understand. So you have this song stuck in your head and you don't know what it says. So as you can see, if you don't know Spanish, the key verse for this week was Romans 12:2, which is, do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so this is actually at the end of the slideshow, but Playa Roca Rompiolas is Breaker Rock Beach, or something like that is the English translation. So Jesus being the rock, and so you don't want to be conformed to the world, which is the waves crashing on the rocks. That was kind of the theme of the week. So Mark, go ahead and play this.
Todo empezó en el huerto de Becho de Valladán, con Satanás mintiendo y tentando para comer, la regla era clara, el fruto prohibido, mas no obedecieron a defender la verdad, si el diablo nos miente para allá. Y siempre recuerda que no quepa duda, toda la verdad, más fuerte, toda la verdad. Mira, si eres tentado por las mentiras, dudas y error, tu torre fuerte es la verdad de Dios que puede vencer. Si viene la prueba, busca tu Biblia, pues Dios ha hablado a defender la verdad. Si el diablo nos miente, para allá. Y siempre recuerda que no quepa duda, toda la verdad. A defender la verdad, si el diablo nos miente, para allá. Y siempre recuerda que no quepa duda, toda la verdad. Toda la verdad. Romanos 16, 19 y 20. Romanos 16, 19 y 20. Sé sabio para hacer el bien y limpio del mal. Sé sabio para hacer el bien y limpio del mal. Limpio de paz, aplastará a Satanás debajo de sus pies. Y el Dios de paz aplastará a Satanás debajo de sus pies. Romanos 16, 19 y 20. Romanos 16, 19 y 20. Sé sabio para hacer el bien y limpio del mal. Sé sabio para hacer el bien y limpio del mal. Y el Dios de paz aplastará a Satanás debajo de sus pies. Y el Dios de paz aplastará a Satanás debajo de sus pies. Muy bien. Por esa costa camina la arena entre tus pies, pero disfruta de la playa. Roca rompe olas de las magníficas verás, costas sin fin, nunca se sabes que hallarás. En roca rompe olas, hay una roca antigua de verdad, con vientos y mareas, que rompe grandes olas. En esa roca tu vida firme está, su nombre es Jesús y no nos moveremos. En Playa Roca rompe olas. Si se levanta tempestad, una prueba y tentación, vienes contra que la playa. Roca rompe olas, nunca a la arena es. En Cristo firme estoy, Él es el único perfecto. Roca rompe olas. Hay una roca antigua de verdad donde hay vientos y mareas y rompe grandes olas. En esa roca tu vida firme está, su nombre es Jesús y no nos moveremos. En Playa Roca rompe olas. ¿Cuál es la buena y aceptable voluntad de Dios? Hay una roca antigua de verdad donde hay vientos y mareas y rompe grandes olas. En esa roca tu vida firme está, su nombre es Jesús y no nos moveremos. En Playa Roca rompe olas. En Playa Roca rompe olas. En Playa Roca rompe olas. Bien hecho, muy bien, muy bien.
Yeah, I think so. It's certainly seen here.
I think that was one thing we talked about Myra with when we went to Viola's house to do the baking class. So here's a group of 8 ladies who Viola knows each of them, but they didn't know each other. And they were obviously having some deep conversations about things that were going on in their lives. And if we were to get a group of us, maybe I invite friends over to my house, would they open up the same? No. So it's not just the kids. They're very open, sharing, hospitable. That's their culture.
When you walk into like the church every morning, like you don't just walk past people. Like here we walk in and can walk past 5 people and nobody would think anything of it. There, they want to greet everybody, or it's like offensive if you don't, which we found out later in the week. So after that, I made sure I talked to everybody I saw. So
Any other questions? So just some closing thoughts. I don't know exactly if or when our church will send another team to Mexico. I think the general assumption is that this is something we're going to continue. I don't know if it'll be next year or not, but I would certainly encourage all of you to consider going on that next trip. I know some of you have done some in the past, but if you haven't, definitely would encourage you to consider this. You don't need to have any special skills or talents or anything. It doesn't take that much to help a kid with crafts. And I don't know if we'll be doing VBS if we go back again or what, but I would say, if you feel called to go, there's a reason, and your talent will be used one way or another, no matter what that trip looks like, whether it ends up being a construction or VBS or baking or whatever the case may be. Also, we haven't really talked about this up here yet, but the youth group is taking a trip next summer on a missions trip. We are leaving the state. I haven't told the kids where we're going yet. They find out in about a week and a half when we have a parents' meeting on Thursday night. So I can't tell you because several of them are here right now. But if you ask me privately, I might tell you if you want. No, I'm not telling you. So, for the teens that are here, I hope you guys heard just how impactful this can be for you, as well as the difference you can make there. Because oftentimes we think about, well, what kind of difference are we going to make there? But it makes just as much of a difference on us as well. We certainly, those of us that just got back from the trip, certainly appreciate all your prayers and support. I would hope for next summer, and there'll be some fundraisers this fall to help pay for that trip coming up, that we can count on the church's prayers and support for that trip as well. So with that, let me close in prayer. Then I assume you are all staying for the small group training, right? So everybody will just move right over there after this. So, all right, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity that you gave the 9 of us to go down to Mexico. Lord, I just pray that the impact you made on our lives is permanent, and this isn't just a fleeting moment that we will forget about. Lord, I know, at least for me, there are memories and relationships that will continue. So I just pray for those. Lord, I do pray for the lives that we impacted down there and the differences that we made there. Lord, I pray for Rod and Myra as they continue to look for opportunities to continue to grow their churches, to give them some permanent locations, with at least one where they're looking for a permanent location that they can establish roots in a community. And I also know Rod is continuing to look for the next church plant to start, the next one to continue to grow his ministry. So just be with the 2 of them as they continue to minister to these different communities, to the kids in their neighborhood that we heard about today, and just all the difference they're making there. We pray for Jamie and, what was his wife's? Sherry, the couple from Canada that are down there ministering with them as well and helping to support their ministry. Just be with them and their family. Lord, just be with this church as we continue to make a difference. Mexico matters. Mount Joy matters, as Eddie said, Lord. So just help us to continue to be a beacon and a light for you, and be the rock of Jesus as the kids were learning about for you in this community and in wherever we send missions teams to in the future, whether that be Mexico or that undisclosed location our youth ministry is going to next summer. So just be with us all this week, Lord. Just pray that we can continue to make a difference with our friends and relatives here in this area as individuals and a church body. We pray this in your name. Amen.